There were 67 people in that room, and somehow, I was the only one invisible. She walked past me 4 times, laughing, gesturing, balancing a glass of wine like she was born for it. And not once did she meet my eyes. Not even by accident. The first time, I thought maybe she didn't see me. The second time, I wondered if she was just trying not to be obvious. By the 4th time, I was staring through her like a window. Someone bumped into my shoulder, said, "Oops, sorry, man." And I realized I hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Her hand touched her boss's elbow again, light, playful. I'd seen that exact motion before. At our wedding reception, when she grabbed my hand in front of my cousins. I remembered that grip. It meant something then. Now she gave it away like it cost nothing. A waiter walked by with tiny spoons of something green and expensive. I took one. Tasted like cold foam and regret. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I just felt misplaced. Like I'd wandered into someone else's party wearing the wrong name tag. She used to do this thing when we were out. Reach behind her back and squeeze my fingers for no reason. Just a signal. I'm here, I see you. Tonight? Her hands were busy holding secrets. Across the room, someone called her name. Not me. Not even close. She looked stunning. That was the worst part. Her hair curled perfectly at the ends, and the back of her dress dipped just low enough to catch every man's second glance. And when she laughed too hard, she did that thing where her shoulders bounced, and I used to love that. Now it felt rented, like she borrowed that version of herself for this exact kind of night. So I left. No note. No text. No one stopped me. Not even the valet. Halfway to the car, my phone buzzed. Please come back. That's it. No punctuation. No explanation. Just panic typed with trembling fingers. I turned around. The party lights spilled onto the sidewalk like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just witnessed a performance I wasn't cast in. I almost went back. Until I realized something. She hadn't messaged me all night. Not once. Not until I left. I didn't move for a full minute. Just stood there in the shadow of the parking garage stairwell, staring at her message glowing on my cracked phone screen. Please come back. But something was wrong. Not just the timing, not just the sudden urgency, something subtle. Off. Like a sentence meant for someone else. And then I saw it. She didn't use my name. Kendall always texted me the same way. L, if she was being casual. Eliot, when she was serious. Babe, if she wanted something. Never just nothing. I walked slowly to the car, each footstep echoing louder than the last. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something. As I pulled open the driver's side door, I noticed a figure walking toward me across the lot. At first I thought it was her. But it wasn't. It was the valet from earlier, early 20s, tall, nervous. He had that anxious, too skinny look like he didn't sleep enough. And he was holding something in his hand. Hey, sir. I froze halfway into the car. You dropped this, he said, offering me a folded square of paper. Not a napkin. Not a receipt. Something firmer. I took it slowly. My name wasn't written on it. Nothing was. He nodded awkwardly and jogged off before I could say anything. I unfolded the square inside the car with the door still open. It was thick, stationery maybe? No, a place card. From the party. Inside, someone had scribbled a message in red pen. Ask her who Bryce is. I stared at the words for a long time, like they were going to rearrange into a joke. Or maybe into an apology. I didn't know any Bryce. At least, I didn't think I did. And whoever wrote this hadn't signed it. For a second, I thought about going back into the party. Walking straight in, finding her, and asking her in front of everyone, who's Bryce? But what would that have solved? She'd just lie. Or worse, she'd act confused. Make me feel crazy. Again. Instead, I drove. Not home. Not yet. I just drove around the city like a man who needed movement more than direction. My knuckles were pale on the wheel. The paper sat on the passenger seat like it was watching me. Like it knew something I didn't. My phone buzzed again. Eliot, where are you? This time she used my name. I didn't answer. I just stared out the windshield and kept driving until I hit a red light near a closed bookstore. And that's when I remembered. Kendall had a password on her iCloud account. One she made me help her reset 2 weeks ago. I had it written down in my notes app. I didn't plan anything at first. But now, my hands were moving before my brain had caught up. I pulled over, opened my laptop, signed into her iCloud, waited, and there it was. The backup, a mirror of her phone, and buried inside, a message chain marked with a heart emoji. Bryce, The most recent text from him was sent 2 hours before the party started. Tonight's the night. No more hiding, right? My hands started shaking. I scrolled up. Slowly. Every line like a pin pressed under my fingernails. Photos. Jokes. Inside references I didn't understand. And then I found something that made my stomach fold in on itself. A selfie of the two of them, taken in our living room. She was wearing my hoodie and smiling the way she used to smile only for me. When I finally got home that night, the house felt too still, like it was holding its breath. Our front door always creaked, but that night it didn't. The hallway lights flickered once before settling into a soft hum. It felt wrong to be there without her, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. I dropped my jacket on the chair and just stood there, phone still in my hand, her message still glowing on the screen. Please come back. I wanted to believe it meant something, that she realized she'd gone too far, but all I could see in my mind was that picture, her, with him, in my hoodie. I couldn't even decide if I was furious or heartbroken. Maybe both. Maybe neither. I sat on the couch, staring at the TV that wasn't turned on, when my phone suddenly connected to Bluetooth. It made that little chime, the one you hear when something nearby has been paired before. Except I hadn't connected anything. The screen flashed. Bryce's AirPods connected. I froze. My phone doesn't even remember other people's devices. The name popped up again, and then vanished. I walked slowly through the apartment, phone in hand, refreshing the Bluetooth list. There it was again. Strong signal. Somewhere close. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the guy had been near her before. Maybe his AirPods had paired to her phone by accident. Maybe my phone picked it up somehow through the cloud. That's what I told myself until I opened the bedroom door. Her jewelry was scattered on the dresser, and her perfume hung thick in the air. But there was something else. Something small and black near the nightstand. I bent down and picked it up. AirPod case. 2 inside. Not mine. My heart thudded so hard I could feel it in my neck. I opened the Find My app, just to be sure. The case connected immediately, marked as last seen. Here. My living room. My home. I set them on the table, staring at them like they might explain themselves. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I opened the Messages app on my laptop again, went back into her text with Bryce, and scrolled until I hit a voice memo. It was from 2 nights ago. I didn't want to press play, but I did. The sound was muffled, like it was recorded accidentally. Then laughter, hers. His voice followed, deeper, confident. You sure he won't be home early? And then her, soft but clear. He never notices anything. That's what makes it easy. I swear I stopped breathing. Every part of me wanted to delete the file, to pretend I hadn't heard it. But I couldn't. It wasn't just the words. It was how comfortable she sounded. How certain. Like I'd become a background character in my own life. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked outside. I didn't even know where I was going. I just couldn't sit there anymore. The night air hit me hard, and I kept walking until I reached the park near our building. I sat on a bench, opened her message again. Please come back. And for the first time, I realized what it really was. It wasn't an apology. It was damage control. Something must have gone wrong at that party. Something she didn't plan for. Maybe Bryce's name slipped out. Maybe someone saw them. Maybe her boss noticed the tension. Whatever it was, it scared her enough to pretend to care again. I stayed there for hours, trying to figure out what to do next. My chest hurt, my hands were shaking, and my brain kept replaying that voice memo on a loop. She sounded happy, genuinely happy, in a way I hadn't heard in months. And suddenly, I knew I couldn't just wait for her to explain. I needed proof. Not a hunch. Not a text. Real proof. So I drove back to the venue. The party was long over, the parking lot empty except for one lone car parked near the side exit. Hers. I killed the headlights and sat there in the dark, watching. 10 minutes. 20. Then, out of nowhere, a figure came out of the building's side door. It wasn't her boss. It wasn't any of her coworkers. It was him. He walked up to her car, tried the handle, then looked around nervously. When it didn't open, he pulled out his phone and made a call. A few seconds later, a light in the car blinked twice, the kind that only happens when the owner unlocks it remotely. Which meant she was still awake, watching, and she'd just let him in. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything started to spiral. I stayed in my car with the engine off, lights out, windows cracked just enough to hear the night breathe. Bryce stood by Kendall's car for a moment, pacing, rubbing the back of his neck. He kept glancing at the building, the way someone does when they're waiting for a signal they don't trust. Then her hazard lights blinked once, twice, unlocking the doors. He got in without hesitation. But here's what chilled me. The passenger door opened before he reached it. That meant someone was already inside. I sank lower in my seat. My instincts were screaming, but my hands stayed still, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold me together. He didn't start the engine. The headlights never came on. Just silhouettes, quiet shifting, like they were waiting. Not for each other, for me to leave. But I didn't. I watched. 7 minutes passed. Long enough for them to talk, or argue, or maybe sit in silence deciding what to delete. Then Bryce stepped out again, but he wasn't alone. Kendall followed. She had changed out of the dress she wore earlier at the party. Gone was the deep blue silk, the gold heels, the glitter that sparkled under gallery lights. Now she wore sweatpants. And one of my old hoodies again. The same one from the photo. Something in me cracked. It wasn't just betrayal, it was comfort. The fact that she could slip into pieces of my life while handing it to someone else, like none of it mattered. Like I was just the old version of a life she was repackaging for someone better. They talked for a moment. Then she handed him something. Small, square, wrapped in a paper towel. He looked around, like he knew it was risky, then nodded. He left in a different car parked near the service alley. She stayed behind. I should have left. I should have gone home and pretended none of it happened. But the image of her handing him that thing stuck in my head. What was it? A key? A flash drive? Something stolen from me. So I followed. I waited 5 minutes after she went back inside. Then I circled the building, found the alley, and parked down the block. Bryce's car was still visible, a dented gray Honda with out-of-state plates. I stayed 2 cars back and followed him across the city. He drove smooth, confident, like this wasn't the first time he'd done something in the dark. We passed 3 exits, took a long curve off the highway, and eventually turned into a residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. Rows of duplexes with tiny, perfect lawns and identical porch lights. He pulled into the driveway of a unit with no car in front. No lights on inside. I parked down the street, engine off, and waited. He got out, glanced at his phone, then walked around back. I made my way closer on foot, cutting across trimmed yards and using hedges as cover. I know how this sounds. I know I crossed some line that night. Maybe the line between hurt and obsession. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I just needed something. One piece of this puzzle to fall into place. I reached the side of the house and crouched low. A small window glowed in the basement. I moved closer, slowly, and peeked through the glass. That's when everything I thought I knew exploded. Inside, Bryce wasn't alone. There were 2 other men. One of them had a laptop open, and he was dragging folders from a USB stick into some kind of password-protected archive. I couldn't see much from my angle, just flashes of words. But I caught one word that made my stomach drop. Contracts. Not documents. Not emails. Contracts. The kind Kendall worked with. I snapped a photo through the glass. The flash reflexively went off. Instantly, one of the men looked up. I dropped. Heart pounding. I crawled backward, knees scraping against the dirt. I heard the basement door open. Fast footsteps. I didn't run, I sprinted. I nearly tripped over a trash bin, dove into my car, and peeled off before anyone could catch a plate. Halfway home, I realized I was shaking so hard I couldn't feel my fingers. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't just cheating. Something bigger was happening. And Kendall had dragged me into it without saying a word. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every sound in the apartment made me flinch. The hum of the fridge, the heater clicking on, the pipes groaning as if the walls were whispering her name. I replayed the basement scene in my head over and over again. The men, the USB, the word contracts, and the flash of my phone giving me away. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was fear, the kind that sinks deep, makes your skin crawl from the inside out. When I finally walked back into our apartment around 5 a.m., I half expected her to be gone. But no, her car was still outside, and inside, she was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, the TV flickering quietly. She looked peaceful, like someone who had nothing to hide. But that calmness, it felt staged, rehearsed. I stood there staring at her for almost a full minute before I noticed something strange. Her phone was on the coffee table, plugged in. But the wallpaper was wrong. Kendall's lock screen was always a picture of our dog, the one we lost last year. Now it was just a solid blue background. No notifications. No texts. No missed calls. Clean. Too clean. I picked it up carefully and tried her code. Didn't work. She had changed it. I set it back down. But then, as I turned to leave the room, I saw something else, the tiniest blinking light under the couch. At first, I thought it was just a reflection from the TV, but when I crouched down, I realized it wasn't. There was another phone down there. A second one. Black case. No cracks. No fingerprints. Like it had just been bought. I pulled it out, my heart pounding. It was off. When I pressed the power button, the screen lit up with the Apple logo and the words "Hello, welcome to iPhone setup." Brand new. No data. No SIM card. Just ready to be used. I looked at her sleeping face and realized what that meant. This wasn't a backup phone. It was a clean one. Something she planned to start using soon. Maybe to replace the one full of things she didn't want me to see. I don't even remember sitting down, but the next thing I knew, I was on the floor next to the couch, just staring at her. The rise and fall of her breathing. The faint smell of her shampoo. The person I'd built a life around was lying there, dreaming peacefully, while I was unraveling. It felt surreal, like I was living beside a stranger who was wearing my wife's skin. Then her phone buzzed. The one on the table. Just once. A silent vibration. The screen lit up for a second. I saw it. A new message. No name. Just a single initial. B. I didn't even have time to read the full message before she stirred. I dropped the second phone behind the couch and stepped back. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused. "Eliot," she murmured, like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't hiding an entire other life right there in our living room. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Couldn't sleep." She rubbed her eyes, smiled faintly. "You left so suddenly last night. I was worried." Worried. The word tasted sour coming from her. I wanted to ask why Bryce had been in her car, why she had two phones, why there were strangers handling company contracts in someone's basement. But instead, I said, "I needed air." She nodded, sleepy, stretching a little. "You're always overthinking," she said softly, the same way she used to say you're sweet. "You get paranoid about things that don't matter." Then she leaned back, closing her eyes again. For a second, I almost believed her. The calm tone, the casual confidence, it was hypnotic. She'd always known how to speak like nothing was wrong, how to sound innocent enough to make you doubt yourself. But then I remembered the USB, the voice memo, the flash of fear on her face when she saw me leave the party. No, this wasn't paranoia. This was pattern recognition. When she fell back asleep, I took her phone again and tried to swipe through the notifications before the screen locked. I barely caught 2 words before it went dark. "He knows." I froze. My reflection stared back at me in the black screen. My pulse thundered in my ears. The message wasn't about her boss, or the contracts, or even the basement. It was about me. Whoever sent that message knew I had seen something. And so did she. I placed the phone back exactly where it was, heart pounding so loud I thought it might wake her. Then I walked quietly to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor. I didn't know who to call. The police? Her company? A lawyer? Every option felt dangerous. Every move felt like it could make things worse. Then, just before dawn, I heard a quiet sound from the living room, the door unlocking. I held my breath and waited. Footsteps. 2 sets. One light, one heavy. And then, her whisper. "Did he see anything?" A man's voice answered. Calm, confident, familiar. "No," he said, "but we'll make sure he doesn't." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat behind the locked bedroom door, barely breathing, as Kendall and Bryce's voices drifted in and out from the living room like waves crashing into the shore and pulling back before I could catch more than fragments. They were whispering, but the tone made everything worse. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't flirty. It was tense, controlled, like 2 people balancing something heavy between them. I leaned closer to the door, my ear nearly against the frame. I could hear Bryce pacing. He was angry, but quiet about it. "You should have wiped it," he said. "I thought I did," she replied. "You thought? Jesus, Kendall. What if he made a copy? What if he already sent it somewhere?" A pause. My throat tightened. "I don't think he even knows what it is," she whispered, but she didn't sound convinced. I barely held back a bitter laugh. She was right about one thing. I hadn't known. Not until that moment. I'd thought she was cheating. I'd thought she'd just fallen for some arrogant, smooth-talking guy at work and was trying to hide it. But this was something else. I stepped away from the door before they could hear the floorboards creak. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel sweat crawling down my spine. I opened the closet, moved a pile of old blankets, and pulled out the small metal lockbox where we kept junk we didn't want to throw away: flash drives, old house keys, receipts from vacations we never finished paying off. The flash drive she had asked me to store somewhere safe 2 months ago was still in there. At least I thought it was the same one. Silver. No label. Looked generic. Harmless. I grabbed my old laptop from the bookshelf, the one we never use anymore because the keyboard's half dead and the screen flickers. I didn't want to use my main computer. Not if what I suspected was true. I closed the bedroom blinds and sat on the floor, plugging it in like I was handling a live wire. The drive popped open. Empty. Or so it said. But I've worked in IT for a decade. I know what empty actually means. Hidden folders, encrypted files, misnamed directories. They're easy to hide from amateurs. I launched a recovery tool I'd used years ago when a client accidentally wiped their entire wedding archive. And there it was. One hidden folder. No name. Just a long string of numbers. Inside, dozens of documents. Password protected. One single text file unprotected, likely by mistake. I opened it. It was a list. Names. Contact info. Titles. Notes in short, clinical language. David R. Finance. Vulnerable. Drinking problem. Not public. 3 leverage points. Monica H. Legal. Vocal about ethics violations. Must isolate. E. T. Not a threat. Compliant. My initials. My job title. My profile. Not a threat. Compliant. Like I was already a part of their operation. I felt sick. This wasn't just an affair. This was a coordinated exploitation network inside her company. They were collecting weaknesses, logging them, manipulating people, maybe even blackmailing them. And I'd been marked safe, not because I was safe, but because I was predictable, easy to control, obedient. The guy who brought flowers and stayed out of things he wouldn't understand. I sat there on the bedroom floor staring at my name in black text, realizing I wasn't just some clueless husband. I was a risk they thought they'd already neutralized. But they were wrong. I copied the entire contents of the drive onto my laptop and backed it up to 2 encrypted cloud folders. Then I took the drive, wrapped it in foil, not for science, but because it felt right, and hid it in a place I knew she'd never check. The hollow space under the hallway floorboard we used to store holiday decorations before we stopped celebrating anything together. 10 minutes later, I heard the front door open and close. Quiet, like someone sneaking out. Bryce. I waited, counted to 50, then cracked open the door. Kendall was still in the living room, phone to her ear, whispering fast and low. No, I don't think he saw it. No, the backup was deleted. What do you mean he followed you? How do you know? She was pacing, barefoot, chewing the nail of her thumb. I could see her reflection in the mirror behind the bookshelf. Her calm mask was gone. She looked scared. Not of me, of what I might know. And suddenly, I understood something terrifying. She wasn't protecting Bryce, or their boss, or even herself. She was protecting whatever was on that drive. And now that I had it, I was no longer not a threat. I was something else. I didn't leave the apartment for 2 full days. I didn't sleep much, either. Not because I couldn't. I was exhausted. But because the second I closed my eyes, I saw Kendall's face from the night of the party, the way she smiled past me like I wasn't there. That look made more sense now. I'd spent months blaming myself for our growing distance, for the quiet dinners, the dry texts, the way her laughter started sounding like it belonged to someone else. But the truth was simpler, more cruel. She'd been studying me. Every conversation, every excuse, every touch that felt half a second late. It wasn't disinterest. It was calculation. I reviewed the files again. I'd printed a few key pages and stashed them behind a false panel in my briefcase. Most of it was coded language, but the patterns were clear. Kendall's firm wasn't just in PR, they were in manipulation. Corporate espionage dressed up in media training and brand strategy. They were identifying weaknesses inside partner companies, flagging personnel who could be coerced or corrupted, and using people like me as shields, disposable assets too naive to suspect the bigger game. But I wasn't naive anymore. I knew I had to act, to take the information to someone. But every scenario felt dangerous. If I went to the police, I'd have to explain how I got the data, and that would expose me. If I sent it anonymously, how would I prove I wasn't just a bitter husband making things up? And if I waited too long, someone else might act first. On the third night, I finally stepped out to get air. It was past midnight. Cold. Still. I walked 3 blocks, stopped at the edge of the park, and stared at the old swing set where Kendall once kissed me like she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. Someone dumber. When I got back, I knew immediately something was off. The lights were still off. The door was still locked. Nothing broken. But I felt it. The pressure shift of a room that's been entered, disturbed, violated in a way too subtle to trigger alarms but too real to ignore. I stepped inside carefully, flipping the lights on slowly, one by one. Living room, untouched. Kitchen, clean. Bedroom, bed still made. It wasn't until I got to the hallway that I saw it. The linen closet door was slightly ajar. I always shut that door. Always. I pulled it open. Inside, everything was exactly where it should be, towels folded, baskets aligned. Except for one thing. The wall behind the lowest shelf had a line carved into it. Rough. Not written. Scratched. Like someone had used a key or a knife. For words. He doesn't know yet. I stumbled back like I'd been punched. My knees buckled slightly. I grabbed the frame of the doorway to steady myself. Someone had been in here. Not to steal. Not to search. To warn. Or worse, to toy with me. My mind raced. Was it Bryce? Kendall? Someone higher up? Did they know I had copies of the drive? Or were they just guessing I might? I ran to the floorboard where I'd hidden the original flash drive. Gone. Just like that. But the laptop? Untouched. The cloud backups? Still safe. I checked them twice, re-downloaded the folder, split it across 3 new encrypted volumes, and uploaded each to a different anonymous cloud service using burner accounts. Then I wiped the laptop completely. Factory reset. Took out the hard drive and smashed it with a hammer in the tub until it cracked like a plastic ribcage. I sat on the cold tile floor, shaking, staring at the broken parts of the only device that had held the full truth. The truth that was now fragmented, scattered across digital corners I prayed they'd never find. That's when I got the email. No subject. No sender. Just one line. Stop digging, or next time it's not the wall. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was outside my own body, like the room was tilting. I checked every lock, every camera, every corner of that apartment. But deep down I already knew they'd been one step ahead from the beginning. This was never about me catching up. It was about how long they'd let me think I could. When Kendall got home that evening, she acted normal. Asked about dinner. Talked about her long day. She didn't mention the wall, or the drive, or the email. She was calm, which meant she thought I was done. She thought I'd seen the message and gotten scared enough to back off. But she didn't know I still had the files. And she didn't know I wasn't done yet. So I smiled, nodded, kissed her forehead, and waited, because the next move wouldn't be hers. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear this time, but out of resolve. I'd stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror for hours, practicing how I'd keep my expression calm when she walked through the door. How I'd lie with my eyes the way she did. How I'd pretend everything was normal. She wanted me silent, obedient, broken. But I had one advantage she'd underestimated. I knew her better than she knew herself. I knew her tells, her patterns, her escape routes. She thought I'd crumble under pressure. She thought I'd sit still in the corner of my life while they erased me quietly. So while she showered the next morning, I acted. I emailed the full archive to 2 reporters, not the big cable networks, but local investigative journalists with nothing to lose and everything to gain. I attached a document outlining what I'd seen, where, and when. I included the scratched message on the wall, the basement meeting, the voice memo. Then I put a copy on a USB, sealed it in an envelope, and mailed it to a third person, someone she would never suspect. Her mother. At 11:04 a.m., I got a reply from the first reporter. At 11:36, the second one asked to verify the source. At 12:12, the fire began. No, not literal fire. Not yet, but the first cracks in the mask. Kendall was in the kitchen pouring coffee when her phone lit up with a push notification. Then another, and another. Her fingers froze on the ceramic mug. She slowly picked up her phone and scrolled. Her face changed. The headlines were already up. Whistleblower exposes internal manipulation network at PR firm. Leaked files reveal shocking corporate espionage tactics. CEO and key employees under investigation after anonymous tip. I watched her, silent, from across the room. She turned to me slowly. Her face was pale. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. And then, for the first time in months, I spoke before she did. You always thought I was just the guy who'd stay, who'd forgive, who'd look the other way because he loved you more than himself. She said nothing. You underestimated me. Still nothing. I walked past her to the hallway, picked up my duffel bag. I'd already packed it the night before. Clothes, IDs, backup drive. Enough to leave and not look back. Her phone rang. I didn't need to check the screen to know it was Melinda, her boss, or maybe Bryce, panicking as the story broke. She didn't answer it. Instead, she finally whispered, "You ruined everything." "No," I said, looking her in the eyes. "You did." I left the apartment without slamming the door. And for the first time in a long, long time, the silence that followed didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like freedom. 3 weeks later, the investigation was officially underway. Kendall's firm was in full crisis mode. Bryce's name was all over the leaked reports. Melinda resigned under health reasons. Civil suits were being filed. Subpoenas issued. As for me, I got a new job in Portland. Smaller company, quieter life. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. Good people. Real faces. The local reporter who broke the story sent me a message after the third wave of lawsuits hit. "You did the right thing. Thanks for trusting us." I sat in a small coffee shop that afternoon, watching couples pass by the windows, not out of envy anymore, but peace. No more second phones. No more cold glances across rooms. No more pretending. And when I finally took off my wedding ring and slipped it into my coat pocket, I didn't feel like I was letting go of something precious. I felt like I was finally claiming myself again. I don't know what Kendall's future looks like now. I don't care. All I know is, she lost control the moment she thought I was too weak to matter. And now, I'm the one writing the ending.